Back once again with the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We are breaking down the teams that genuinely have a chance to keep the Chiefs from winning it all this year. Are the Ravens ready to topple the Chiefs? Can Josh Allen get over the hill? Will the Broncos take their next step? Is Justin Herbert ready for prime time? Any NFC teams? Which ones? Do the Bengals bounce back? We're talking about it right here, right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Do appreciate it. Off and running here on a Tuesday night. Remember, if you're catching us via the podcast, you can be a part of the conversation. A lot of folks already in the chat room. If we have you join us here at 9:30 p.m. Central, is when we stream live and talking about who the teams are that can really prevent the Chiefs. Basically, we're talking about the teams that are good enough to win a championship. Always like to kind of get a sample of what the exercise had you learned, Sam. What you take away anything from going through the process of trying to figure out who the teams are that can stop the Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, I think typically maybe more similar to the last 2 years. I feel like there's quite a few contenders, but I didn't just rank the best teams. Like there's a reason, I guess, for the madness of my rankings that it'll be pretty clear are not just like who I think the best 5 teams in the NFL are outside of Kansas City.
Wow, Raiders at the top. Didn't see that one coming.
Exactly, yeah.
But that'll be interesting to hear your point on that one. How about you, Jeff? What did you take away from this?
You know, I did something similar to this for my full-time job, the NFL Network, and my list has changed already. And so I think I did one back in May, and based on some moves and some different perspectives, I was surprised that some teams moved around that it seemed pretty concrete a few months ago, and now it seems like it's a lot more fluid, and it might change again.
Really?
Exercise in August,
so so the draft was that pre-draft or was that pre-free agency or what? Where?
I think I did it like right after. I think I did it right before the draft.
Okay.
So I think it was before some of these big moves were made. But
right.
But yeah, I think that there's probably. This is the most wide open year we've had in a long time where I could see up to 8 to 9 teams legitimately having a chance at winning a championship if things broke right for them.
Would we have – I think you're right. I think there's probably 8 to 12 teams at best in any given year that are good enough to win a championship. And, I think when you have a dynastic team like the Patriots were, the Chiefs are right now, that maybe shrinks that because somebody's got to get rid of them to make it happen. But would we have been saying that? Would you have said the same thing if the Chiefs had beaten the Eagles? Or
it might be a different. No, it would be a different conversation for sure. I think the way they lost the Super Bowl, and maybe Sam sees this differently. I think it opened up the door for more possibilities for other teams. Yeah. I think they. It's kind of like when you see a great boxer get beat, heavyweight champion. All of a sudden, a lot of people could beat you now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the proof of that is I think the Super Bowl favorite, there's like 3 of them that are at 7-1. And I'm going through year by year here because unfortunately I can't do it to where all the years are apparent to me. But I'm back a decade now, and there's been a team that's been better than 7-1 every year. That like I said, I'm going through it yearly. Like usually there is the Patriots were 2.5-1 one year. I mean, the Chiefs have been 4.5-1. I mean, there's a lot of years where there's somebody that's better than 5-1 to win it.
Yeah, they've got it pretty wide open, and the Chiefs are not one of those 7-1 teams.
Yeah.
Right?
Bills, Ravens, Eagles.
They're not one of the favorites. All right, let's get things started. Sam, you want to lead us off? Number one team to take down the Chiefs is who?
Yeah, I've got the Bills, and the reason being is that they have, first of all, the Bills are a great team, but they have the 5th easiest schedule in the NFL, the 2nd easiest in the AFC. Like that division, getting the Jets stink, the Dolphins stink, the Patriots stink. I think the Bills should be the favorite to have the number 1 seed in the AFC. And I realize the Chiefs have gone that route before. I had to go to Buffalo, and they've won a Super Bowl a year where they had to go to Buffalo and then also to Baltimore to win it. That doesn't mean that's the preferred path. And we've mentioned like that the Bills had the best home record in the NFL over the last 5 years. For all the Chiefs have accomplished, the Bills have the best home record in the NFL over the last 5 years. And I think it's more than 50-50 that the Bills should be a front runner for the number 1 seed. And therefore, if the Chiefs go back to a Super Bowl, they'd have to win in Buffalo again. So that's the reason I've got them number 1.
All right. Where do you go number 1, Jeff?
Same team. A lot of the same reasons. The schedule is a big thing for them. And Sam's right. I think they don't have a game past the Central Time Zone this year. I think all their games are played east of the Mississippi, which is pretty rare. And I double checked that, but I'm pretty sure I heard there was some strange deal where they're not going far away from home even when they're playing road games. And so that's huge. And I do agree that this is their best opportunity schedule-wise because of the division to be the number 1 seed. I think them as the number 1 seed would be a huge thing. For example, I think if that game last year was played in Buffalo, they probably win that game based on the communication, based on the things that happen at the end of the game. Maybe that call goes different when it's in your home stadium. And look, Josh Allen is an MVP now. He's learned how to play within himself. Joe Brady, their offensive coordinator, has unlocked him and that run game. They've built one of the best offensive lines in football. And people don't realize how much injuries have impacted them. I know it's always easy to kind of say, Buffalo can't get it done when it matters most. They've had major defensive injuries over the last 3 or 4 years where they've lost Matt Milano, they've lost Tre'Davious White, lost Christian Benford in last year's AFC Championship game. If they're able to stay healthy, I think that they would beat the Chiefs in a playoff situation. I think they're that good and they're that hungry.
Well, adding Joey Bosa should help that, right? Like that should make it much easier. I actually like that, closet my Chiefs fandom. I kind of was like, get Joey Bosa. Just hope he's healthy for the playoff games. While I'm taking the shot at Joey Bosa, I think when he's healthy, he can play. He's just not healthy that much. But look, I don't dislike the Buffalo Bills. I've got them number 2 on my list. And we'll get into the coaches later on one of these podcasts. But I'm going to back the coach that I think is the better coach, and that's John Harbaugh. I'll take the Baltimore Ravens as the team. And I know, I feel like I understand Lamar Jackson has, not gotten it done to this point. I also don't think he's been the turnovers are the killer for him in these playoff games.
Minor thing, huh?
No,
if he just went for the turnovers, he'd be great.
Yeah, if he would, exactly. You're speaking my language now, Jeff. You're seeing where I'm coming from. First of all, he's 3-5 and not 0-6. All right, so he has won a playoff game. When it comes to the TD to INT, it's 10-7. Everybody's numbers get watered down in the playoffs because you're playing good defenses. His problem is fumbling the ball, and that was the problem again last year. I think part of this has to just be a fluke, right? Like I look, if they bomb out in the first round, then I'm done with the Ravens probably forever. But I think John Harbaugh is the better coach. I like their offense. I think is, and so's Buffalo. I have no problem with Buffalo being number 1. I could very easily have Bills 1, Ravens 2, but I think they are 1-2. And I'll be interested to hear when Sam gave us kind of the teaser of where he was going with this. I'm interested to hear what maybe the curveball is going to be from Sam on what he's looking at here. And I think there's a number of ways to look at it. Is it that the Chargers and Broncos have a couple of shots at them and they're good teams, and so they could ding them a couple of times in the regular season, or force the Chiefs to have to beat them a third time if they would lose twice in the regular season, and that makes it easier for them to get through it? I think there are a couple of different scenarios there, but Baltimore's just, they are a quality team. I do like what they added, and I don't, I don't know where the weakness is for them, and I like John Harbaugh more than I like Sean McDermott. Like, the problem hasn't been John Harbaugh. The problem has been turnovers. And there's an old adage Phil Steele used to write in his magazine: turnovers equal turnaround. If you have a season where you benefited greatly from being positive in the turnovers, you're probably going to go the other way, right? It's going to probably balance it out. We've talked about, like, if there's, you fumbled 10 times and the opposition's fumbled 10 times, and, you're plus 10, like, you've gotten lucky, right? The ball bounces around. I just think there has to be an element of Baltimore being unlucky. And so I will take the Baltimore Ravens at the top of my list. Where do you go at number 2? Sam?
I've got the Ravens number 2. One thing that broke the tie for me, because I think these are the two best teams in the AFC. What broke the tie for me was that the Bills have the 5th easiest schedule, but also the Bills get the Chiefs at home in the regular season. Baltimore comes to Kansas City in the regular season. So if it's a scenario we're talking head-to-head for playoff seeding and where that game's going to be played, Bills are more likely to play the Chiefs at home than I think the Ravens are, which I think is what makes that a more likely challenger to the Chiefs getting back to a Super Bowl.
Let's add to Jeff's point. The furthest west they go is Houston.
Yeah, 7 or East. 7 Eastern time zone. That's the only Central time zone.
The next furthest is New Orleans.
Yeah.
So they're not going west at all. I mean, just to
New Orleans is in Buffalo, but they go to New York, Atlanta, Carolina, Miami, Pittsburgh, New England, and Cleveland are all Eastern time zone, and then they go to Houston. Yeah. I didn't realize that. I mean, I was judging 5th. When I said 5th easiest schedule, that doesn't even take the travel miles into account. I mean, that's what it, like, they're not going to be challenged.
They can bus. Like if it was a bus or a commercial flight, they would be quicker to bus. To give you an idea of, like, I know they don't fly commercial, they fly charter, so it's even quicker to fly, and so that's what they'll do and all. But, like, it is nothing to drive to Cleveland from Buffalo. Yeah. I used to go through both of them on my way to Syracuse. They're not far apart, right? Like, I mean, Pittsburgh's not that far. I mean, like, these are like Carolina, Atlanta, you'd want to get on a plane. Houston, obviously, you'd want to get on a plane. But Buffalo to New York, that's probably like 6 hours, right? So, like, if you drove it, if you fly it, it's nothing. So, the travel is for sure easy.
And I wish I could say I knew this ahead of time, but looking at Buffalo's schedule, they also open with the Ravens, and they get the Ravens at home too. It's lining up for Buffalo to be the potential team that I think it goes through. We've got 18 weeks to go. Buffalo, I think, should be the favorite at number 1 seed.
Yeah. One of the other reasons why I did not go with Buffalo is, like, I feel like those teams, when you're not the man, like the Chiefs are the man right now, and or the Eagles, it's one of those two. Like, you have your kind of charmed year, and you need to cash on it. And when you don't, you just don't kind of get back the same swagger. Are you that confident, like, that Buffalo will just go back to being what they were last year? Or do you think there's some hangover for not getting it done when they had to have felt in their heart that they were the best team out there?
Yeah, I think 2 years ago could have fit that bill too. And then they did come back last year. But the luck, I mean, you mentioned the turnovers. Like, nobody was more fortunate with turnovers last year than the Bills were. Now, they were unlucky the year before, but the Bills set an NFL record for fewest turnovers in a season, or tied an NFL record, right? And I think an NFL streak without a turnover too. Like, I agree with your assessment that you can't count on that happening again. But when you look at their schedule, like, there's games they could afford to lose the turnover battle 3-0 to the Jets and go 2-0 against them. Like, this is just, I think we're going to be talking about the Bills, like, winning 14 games this year.
Yeah, okay. This is, and I think people, as great as the Chiefs have been, you don't become a championship team in a vacuum. People forget all the tough losses they had before Patrick Mahomes showed up. And there were a lot of guys who were around for those losses who contributed to the championship years. And so I think there's something to be said for learning how to win a championship and go through those tough times. that can help the Bills. But look, just like Sam, the Ravens are number 2 for me. So they're we can flip it to that part of the conversation as well. And the only thing I don't like about the Ravens is that, one, they've only beaten the Chiefs one time since Lamar Jackson's been the quarterback. And 2, those turnovers do matter a lot. I mean, no matter what you think of the coaching, the playing for the Bills, I think, has been way more up to snuff in these kind of moments with the Chiefs. And they've just been outplayed in some sort of situations. Whereas the Ravens literally have dropped the football, thrown it to the wrong team. I'll push back on it's not just fumbling with Lamar Jackson. He threw a horrible interception last year against the Bills. He threw a horrible interception against the Chiefs late in the game, where they still could have made some plays to win it in the AFC Championship game. And Mark Andrews dropped a big pass last year. Talking to Ravens fans, they feel like this team is not clutch, and so it's hard to put them on top of the list when they're dealing with those kinds of situations, those kind of issues, year in and year out.
There's no doubt they're limited. And I have the Bills at number 2 for all the reasons that you've said. I don't know if I said that already or not, but there's no doubt that like when they have to throw the ball, they struggle. And I know everyone's like, well, why'd they quit running the ball 2 years ago in the AFC Championship game, right? Like they were. I will point out though, did Lamar Jackson fumble reaching for the goal line when L'Jarius Sneed knocked the ball away? No, it was Zay Flowers, right? Like there are other, there are other accomplices to it. I do agree. Lamar Jackson has been a problem. I am not trying to say that he's getting a bum rap or anything like that. It's just the coach, and I think that their problems are more fixable, right? By hold on to the ball. Like that's been their bigger deal. But I have no problem. I'm not going to argue either one of these teams. They're both tough teams, and frankly should probably each have a Super Bowl at this point. Right? Like I think that's pretty clear. I felt like this would be 1-2, and that really the exercise would begin once we got done with those two. I didn't think anybody would see it too different. We will begin with the real breakdown, I guess we'll say, when we get back from here from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot.
Big moves, bigger vibes. If you haven't heard, Besame Wellness is now Suede Cannabis. Our colors and name may have changed, but you'll still experience the same great service on top of better deals, longer hours, and faster delivery. Smithville, Liberty, Kansas City, Warrensburg, and North Kansas City. No matter which location you visit, you'll feel right at home. Find the location nearest you and shop online at SuadeCannabis.com. Life should be dope. Let's make it happen. Suede Cannabis.
All right, we're ready for number 3, Sam. Who is number 3 on your list?
Yeah, this gets into my intro where this is not the third best team in the NFL, but I've got the Broncos third as the team that could, most prevent the Chiefs from winning another Super Bowl. First of all, they get 2 shots at them. Like, I actually think if you size this exercise up as saying what team is most likely to beat the Chiefs this year, you have to say Denver, because they get them twice. And Patrick Mahomes has not played his best football against Denver either. In fact, I actually looked it up. In his last 8 games, he's only once had a passer rating better than 100 against the Broncos. In the last 3 games, the Chiefs have averaged 14.7 points per game in their last 3 meetings where Mahomes has played, not including that Week 18 backup game last year. In the last 3 games Mahomes has played, 14.7 points per game against Denver, and they've got the best defense in the NFL. Like, that part's not changing. That part's not getting easier. So yeah, that's all the reasons that I think there's reasons the Broncos could disrupt the Chiefs and make their playoff path harder, even if I think the Chiefs are definitely the AFC West favorites.
Jeff, let me ask you a question. Do you have Denver number 3 here?
They're not 3, but they're on my list.
Okay, I'll go here because I do have Denver number 3 also.
Wow. Okay.
for everything that Sam said. And I thought I was kind of crafty with Denver being here. But I agree with everything that Sam said. And I think, this may look foolish if Bo Nix has like a sophomore slump. And, we've discussed CJ Stroud and how he's kind of, taking a step back and, from year 1 to year 2, teams do get a book on you and they got a chance to go out and game plan. So I think there could be a regression on the offensive side of the ball. And I think they probably wanted to get a little more offense around Bo Nix, but they didn't. I'll give them credit. I don't think they made a bad deal. Although I love Hufanga, the safety. I feel like they couldn't get what they wanted offensively. So they said, okay, well, we're just going to add to a strength, right? But we're not going to go sign a bad deal. If they're healthy, they're going to be hell on wheels on defense. I mean, it's ridiculous how good they're going to be on the defensive side of the ball. But if there is a little bit of a regression from Bo Nix, then they could have some problems. If he's the real deal and he doesn't miss a beat in year 2, then I like Denver Broncos. Like the Chargers get more hype, maybe because Justin Herbert's been around longer, but there's a real reason to like the Broncos to be very damaging to whether it's the Chiefs or anybody else.
Yeah, well, here's what I'll say about the Broncos that I think is important to note, and it comes back to what you said about the Ravens. I think the coaching throughout the division, the coaching has gotten a lot better. But I think Sean Payton clearly has decided he's put the Chiefs in his crosshairs. Like the way he was talking at the end of the year, the way they played that last game, he feels like he can knock off the Chiefs. Like he's the man to do it. I don't think he's hiding that secret. I do believe he learned some valuable lessons in New Orleans about how to coach a team. And so I think differently if he was of the mindset, I'm just going to outscore them and I've got my quarterback. I'm going to do all these crazy things and put up a ton of points. He learned in New Orleans that he better have a good defense and he better be able to run the football. And I think that's what makes Bo Nix scary, is that he's not going to go out there and try to turn Bo Nix into the next whatever, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. He's going to put him into a system that accentuates his strengths and then let that defense eat. And so that what makes Denver scary to me is that he understands that I'll put a team on the field that can take care of the Chiefs offense, and I just got to let my guy do what he has to do.
The only kind of ding I would give to them is they do draw the short straw on the NFC East. They have to go to Washington and to Philly. I think you'd really rather have those 2 games at home, and so they get the 2 toughest ones on the road. But if they're going to split that and go 2-2, you're like, well, they get home games against teams that got a better chance to fatten their record. I mean, there's a plus and a minus to that altogether. But they're going to be I think they if the quarterback is what we think he's going to be, they're going to be a very good team.
Well, mine is actually not based on the fact that I think they could compete for the Chiefs for the division, which, I mean, look, everything's possible. That the Chiefs aren't 100% to win the AFC West. It's just based on the fact that I do think the Bills could be looking at like a 3-loss season. And therefore, I think the most likely outcome when I rank, like, look, the Chiefs could go 2-0 against the Broncos, 1-1 against the Broncos, or 0-2 against the Broncos. I think they're more likely to go 1-1 against the Broncos than they are to go 2-0 against the Broncos. And when we all picked this schedule, I think we all had them losing one game against the Broncos. And therefore, if you have to go to Buffalo, and if you've lost that game, there aren't many more you can lose over the course of the season. And I just think Denver's the most likely team to beat them because they get to play them twice.
I think they are the most likely team to beat them, but I also think that they seemingly are the kryptonite. So, like, if you want to take a team that you feel good about beating them in the playoffs, I think Denver's a good pick. Like,
it
they
could
were
be a
not
7-2
Arrowhead last year.
It could be a 7-2 game, right? I mean, something like that, like, could be foreseeable to where you're talking about them playing the Broncos. And that's the other piece of this is you play a team for a third time. I mean, everything's off the table at that point. It just becomes a crapshoot.
Who's number 3 for you, Jeff?
Eagles. I'm going chalk right now because I can't, to me, even with some of the losses they've had on defense, they still have a lot of things that I think would give the Chiefs problems in the Super Bowl if they got a rematch. Starting with their offense, I just think there's everything about their offense is problematic for the Chiefs defense. And you saw that last year. You saw the offensive line dominate. You saw the versatility. If they're stopping the run, they can still go outside to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Jalen Hurts with his legs. I've said this for years. Mobile quarterbacks are always going to give Steve Spagnuolo defenses problems unless you've really got a wealth of talent up front. And when you're talking about having to scheme it up and blitz, going after a guy like Jalen Hurts with that offensive line and his mobility, it's a problem. It's a problem. It's a reason why the Eagles won a couple of years ago in Arrowhead. It's a reason why they almost beat him in his first Super Bowl game, because he can create a lot of plays for you. Jalen Hurts can do that. And their defense, their secondary is going to be the strength of their defense. And it really was a strength last year. We forget that pass rush was not that great going into the Super Bowl. Nobody was talking about how were the Chiefs going to block the Eagles pass rush before that game. And so it really was an extension of what they can do in the back end of their defense. And I think Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, it would not surprise me if they ended up signing Justin Simmons to play free safety for them. But they can do so many things on the back end. And Vic Fangio is so good that I still think that, and they're going to play this year. I think the Eagles are going to beat them this year in week 2. I think they're just a better team.
But even with the defensive losses.
Yep.
Okay. Number 4, Sam. Who's number 4 for you?
I've got the Eagles 4th, but I guess with a little bit of a caveat to what Jeff said, it's the last sentence that allows me to rank them 4th, which is they play the Chiefs this year. Otherwise, I wanted to go all AFC on this. I think the Eagles have literally played the Chiefs twice in the Super Bowl. So, okay, they couldn't prevent them from winning the Super Bowl that year. But again, in the sense of how can your regular season seeding be affected, the Eagles got a major kiss from the schedule makers in terms of when they play the Chiefs, because they get a Thursday game, home game, and then they just have to travel to Kansas City. The Chiefs have to go to Brazil. And by the way, that game will be starting at 9:30 local time in Brazil. And then you have to travel overnight back to Kansas City, and they'll have time to get back. I'm just saying, they've got a tougher schedule in week 1 than the Eagles do. And the Eagles have extended rest. That's not the extension of rest just because they play Friday that it seems like for the Chiefs. So I think the Eagles are going to have a very clear rest advantage in that game. And I don't know what we'll be picking when that game rolls around, but none of us are going to be crazy if we pick the Eagles. And therefore, they have a chance to really influence the Chiefs season in that manner too.
Eagles did not make my list, but they were one of the first ones off. And I don't have a reason other than I think, well, I do have a reason. It's one of the things they said, but as far as when I looked at it, I do have an NFC team. It's not the Eagles, but I just think it's unlikely to be the Eagles. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe that was foolish. I do think they lost real pieces on defense, and I'll echo what was said in the chat room. They lose an offensive coordinator again. They didn't fare well after they lost the offensive coordinator. Didn't fare that great after they lost their coordinators the last time. And I think Nick Sirianni's a time bomb. And it may not go off now, but if there is adversity, I don't think he'll handle it well. So I'm never going to be real bullish on the Eagles, right? But they got a lot of things. I also don't think the running back's going to stay healthy. I mean, most running backs don't, and he certainly has not.
Soren's bold and daring prediction.
Exactly.
Eagles it's going to be all Eagles.
Yeah.
Eagles.
Yeah.
Nick
Sirianni in a straight jacket.
Number one pick for the Eagles.
Yeah, I did pick their running back to have more than to lead the league from yards from scrimmage last year, so I was bullish on him. And so now I'll tell you, now you go the other way, right? When no one's looking for it, he gets it done. Now, when everyone's counting on it, he'll get hurt. That's how it works, So we'll see. Number 4 for you, Jeff. What do you got?
I had who was 4 for me? Let me make sure I got this right. I have the Lions.
Okay.
And look, they're going through their own coordinator situation. It's been well chronicled, but I have faith in Dan Campbell. I think he's proven to be somebody who can weather the storm. They've gotten better every year. Last year was a tough blow for them. People sometimes forget they were the number 1 seed. As great as the Eagles were at the end of the year, they were the team that throughout all their injuries, and to me, to be the number 1 seed with all their injuries was quite the accomplishment. But they ran out of gas. And if you keep that team healthy, if Aiden Hutchinson comes back and he's doing what he was doing at the start of the year, if that defense can still make the strides they were making, their offense is still a powerhouse. What they have there on the offensive line and receiver, and Jared Goff can play well and at running back. I don't see. Again, they're probably on paper better than the team that beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And so to me, I have every reason to think the Lions will be back in play and will be fighting for an NFC Championship. And if they get there and they're playing the Chiefs, I like their chances of winning that game.
Not in my top 10.
Not in the top 10. Wow, that's a heck of a list you got there.
Again, it's not top 10 teams, right? It's that to prevent the Chiefs, and I do think there's a regression this year from the Lions. Like Dan Campbell's got to replace coordinators, and I think that is a big. He's done everything else really well. If I'm in Detroit, I feel confident he'll do it, but I want to see it before I just go, oh yeah, no problem. We can get things there. I have the Commanders at number 4. Right. And I think there's a big chance for the sophomore slump and the regression for the quarterback. But if not, I think they were a good team and they made all the right moves in the offseason to become a better team. I think they've got more weapons for the quarterback to, if he is going to have a regression, it won't be because, you're just guarding the same guys. I think they got better along the offensive line. So I really wanted, and I already had it with Denver, but I was looking to have a couple of teams that had cheap quarterbacks, right? Because generally speaking, first contract quarterbacks are what get to the Super Bowl. Now, maybe that's going to change. I was looking at it and saying, okay, well, now we've had Jalen Hurts was cheap when he got there a couple of years ago. It wasn't cheap, but they backload so many things that he actually was cap-wise pretty cheap still. That changes. He's going to get more expensive this year. But I'm like, usually speaking, we have one veteran quarterback that's expensive, and we have one first contract quarterback. So I wanted to add, we've got Bo Nix on this list with Denver for me. I wanted another quarterback on here that was not expensive. So I like Jaden Daniels' upside. I think he's the real deal as a quarterback. So I went with Washington at number 4.
But you said you have 10 teams that you would take over the Lions in this conversation.
To get in the way of the Chiefs. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear the
honorable
mention list
here.
One of them. Wait, get the Raiders in there?
To Sam's point, you've got to play you got to play the Chiefs to really be a huge problem, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm just doing the math here. If you're saying there's 6 other playoff teams with the Chiefs, you're taking 3 other teams in the NFC over the Lions.
I'm looking here. Hold on.
Not necessarily.
No.
I still think I'd have the Lions probably top 10, but I can understand the logic of saying if you play the Chiefs in the regular season, you could adversely affect their ability to get to the Super Bowl just by beating them in the regular season.
The Lions do.
Yeah, the Lions play.
Yeah, the Lions do. Yeah,
the Lions do.
Then the Lions should be in the top 10.
I'm just saying,
but I listen. I do think there's going to be a regression from the Detroit Lions, but I also think it's more like you need to more likely be a team that plays them in the playoffs. And for the Lions, that's Super Bowl only.
Yeah,
part of the mix.
That's still like every other AFC team.
But every other AFC team would theoretically have to go through the Chiefs in the postseason.
Yeah, I'm just
the NFC team would just have to see him in the Super Bowl, and I think that's a lot more likely that they get knocked off. Your points are valid.
Yeah.
Right? Like the Detroit is down there, but I'm just a little bit of like when I bet the overs and unders, the team that was the it factor, like I talk about with Buffalo, like last year was the Lions' year. They crapped it away. I don't think they're just going to refine that mojo. If they're a playoff team, I think they'll be more 11-6-ish, and maybe really tough and battle tested when they get there. Maybe they'll be 10-7, right? But I don't think they just flip that switch back on and roll right into the number 1 seed again.
Yeah. Well, didn't the Chiefs win a couple championships when it wasn't their year?
One, I would say one. I mean, when it wasn't their year, when there was somebody else who was higher, yes. The Ravens probably should have won in 19. Chiefs probably should have won in 20 when the Bucks won it. I don't know who was the charm team in 21 when they lost to the Bengals. It probably was them.
The Chiefs were the best team against the Bengals, but when they beat the 49ers to win back-to-back, the Chiefs were not the best team in the NFL.
No, they were Tennessee. When in 22, that was probably their top
22, they were a top seed. 21, the Titans were the top seed. The Bengals beat the Titans.
Yeah. I don't know. They were pretty good though. I mean, it wasn't the Titans' year. It's never, that quarterback situation's year.
Yeah.
They may have had the best record, but it wasn't their year.
Yeah.
But yeah, the old eager, you got to steal some. Yes. I think the Chiefs stole the Ravens in 19. They stole the whoever you want to who was the one seed? You said it was the
Ravens.
Ravens 2
Right.
years ago. Ravens 2 years ago were really, really good.
Ravens 2 years ago, they stole the Ravens Super Bowl again. Yeah, it happens. It happens. And maybe that's what the Lions will do. Last year was their year to get it done in the NFC, and they flopped. Right? So, yeah, they're out. Not going to have that kind of mojo this year. All right. I will tell you that when it comes to being in an accident, there's really only one place to call. You got to call our friends at Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated injury lawyer. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, we're to number 5 on the list here. So where do we go at number 5, Sam?
I've got the Chargers at number 5 for some similar reasons of what I mentioned, the Broncos. I think the Chargers are like a 7 seed in the AFC, by the way. I don't want people thinking that I'm picking the Chargers to be a Super Bowl contender here. But they play the Chiefs twice. And last year, Patrick Mahomes didn't play his best football against the Chiefs. I mean, what they score against the Chargers, second game was 19-17. First game, 17-10. So they averaged 18 a game against the Chargers last year, and I think their quarterback's good enough, certainly, to beat the Chiefs and give them some problems. I also think what I said about the Broncos, like maybe a 2-7 type matchup, you got to face them a third time, and they could also disrupt their seeding. So for those reasons, I've got them fit. I will say I thought the top 4 were easier to select than the number 5.
Weren't the Chargers pretty beat up in that first game too? I think they have only one offensive lineman healthy. Am I wrong about that?
That was true of like everyone the Chiefs played for like the first 6 weeks was offensive line injuries, right? Baltimore had them, and a lot of teams had offensive line. I don't remember their specifics though.
I feel like Alton, Slater, and somebody else didn't play.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. They definitely had at least somebody not play.
I have no rub. Do you have the Chargers 5, Jeff?
Broncos are 5.
Okay, I have the Chargers. So if we want to stay with the Chargers, we've done both. Go ahead. What do you got for the Broncos? Why Denver now for you?
All the things you guys have said, and I think I mentioned earlier. I do feel like this team, if you want to beat the Chiefs, I think 2 things have to be true about your team. One, you have to be able to make life hard for Patrick Mahomes. And when I look at their defense, the way they're constructed, with those pass rushers and that interior presence with Zach Allen, and then you look at their cornerbacks, like where do the Chiefs have an advantage that they can exploit? I think they can certainly make life difficult for the Chiefs' offensive tackles. They can make life difficult for their interior linemen. They can make life tough for their receivers. If I have to pick between Patrick Surtain and Rashee Rice, I'm taking Patrick Surtain all day long. And so I think that's a big factor in it. And the other factor is I think you have to be able to have a quarterback and an offensive coach who understands how to attack that defense and a mobile quarterback at that. So Bo Nix's mobility to me is scarier than just him and his growth and his development, because I think he can do things off script that can create issues for this defense. So I think that they have everything you want. And the Chargers didn't make it because I think that there are more issues about their supporting cast on offense, and their defense is nothing close to what, it's a good defense, but it's not, to use the phrase we talk about the Chiefs, it's not an elite defense.
They're number one scoring defense in the league last year.
Number one defense in the NFL last year.
How many Pro Bowls do they have on that team?
Who is the elite defense?
How many Pro Bowls? I'm just saying, like,
number one's not good enough to be. This is why the Chiefs can't be elite. If number one can't be elite, nobody can.
Yeah, they scheme it up well. I mean, it's a good defense, but I would argue the same. I mean, look,
I agree with you. The Broncos have a better defense than the Chargers coming up this year, right? I think we're all on that same page, right?
They play a lot of zone. They do a lot. It's very scheme heavy. It's like they're not out there. They didn't have any Pro Bowlers last year off that defense, did they?
Is the goal?
James was the only Pro Bowl player they got on that team.
Is the goal to not allow points or what?
I'm talking about when you roll out your defense and you're looking at the offense, and the offense is saying, how are we going to deal with that? I think that when it's the Chargers, they're saying, okay, here's what they're running. Here's how they got to run it. Here's how we got to beat it. When it's Patrick Surtain out there or Nick Benito or one of those guys, it's like, all right, we're fucked.
Yeah.
We're going to do with this guy.
I know what's going on here. Jeff has finally gotten on board with DVOA, which did not have the Chargers ranked nearly as high as the scoring defense did.
There you go. That's right.
It's the deep analytic dive you've done this offseason. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's just
all DVOA. Yeah,
it's looks, the smell test.
We hear a lot in recruiting. It's like, like Kansas, in basketball. I'm going to equate some to Kansas basketball. Last couple of years, they've been preseason number one. This year, they're not going to be. They're like 19, 20, 21 because they've been burnt, right? The voters have been burnt. There was no reason with their roster the last couple of years to just overwhelmingly be like, Kansas is going to be number one, except for Kansas always delivered. Bill Self always delivered, right? And so at times when you try to say it wasn't their year, it'd make you look like a fool. So everybody settled into the fact that Bill Self is number one. That's not flawed thinking. He always delivers. Right? And so this to me isn't as hard. Like, people get excited about these new coaches, and I'm not talking about Sean Payton. This is not a Chargers Broncos thing. The Broncos are very good. They're on my list as well. But they get excited about, DeMeco Ryans or, whoever it is that comes along and bursts onto the scene. And now they're the thing. Jim Harbaugh can flat out coach football.
Oh, yeah.
And so just leaning on Jim Harbaugh is never a bad thing, right? Maybe we'll get to the end of the career. Maybe, this is it for Bill Self and people are right to be picking him down. It eventually happens, right? It happened for Bobby Bowden. You could always write Florida State in the top 5 for like 15 years. Then all of a sudden, every year they finish worse than they were supposed to be. I don't think we're there with Jim Harbaugh. I think he flat out gets football. And whatever he does, like, if you don't understand it, you should try to look at it again and try to figure out what it is, because he's usually right in everything he does. And so I'm not going to sit here and riddle you and say that the personnel is better than the Broncos. It's not, but they'll be good on defense.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I have no qualms about saying that team will be well coached and they will probably win 11, 12 games just because Jim Harbaugh is coaching.
And I know you're not down on the Chargers, and I'm not running down the Broncos because I have the Broncos higher, right? So I clearly think the Broncos are the bigger threat. I do think that the Chargers are going to be really tough. Like, do we agree Jim Harbaugh will beat Andy Reid at some point for this division title?
Oh yeah, I think Sean Payton will too. Yeah,
I don't know. Because let's say Andy Reid has like 2 years left.
Okay, let's say, that's a good point.
I think you should ask, will he beat Patrick Mahomes for a division title at some point? And
I will say yes, he will. Do you agree?
Because I think Mahomes will play for another 8-10 years. Yes. Will there be an individual year where we pick one of those two to beat Patrick Mahomes ahead of the year? I don't know.
Okay. I think we'll know a lot more on how Herbert looks this year under Jim Harbaugh, right? There should be a step forward in what he does this year. If there isn't, and he's going to be that, he's settled in last year to Alex Smith-like role, right? More Alex Smith. And early on, it was looking like he was going to be one of the real elites. Last year, he played don't turn it over football, That's different than being an elite quarterback.
You know what makes Harbaugh special as a head coach? It's the same thing that made Bill Belichick great when Belichick could really pick players. Like Jim Harbaugh can take players that aren't expensive and make them productive. And that's a great skill to have as a head coach in the NFL because he will take – there's guys on that team right now who people didn't know about a year ago who are productive players for them. And they got rid of big-name guys. So he's not afraid to go out there and take people who fit what he thinks a football player should be in his world, not because they're big names, but because they have a certain personality, a certain makeup. And that, to me, is why it's hard. That's why I'm saying their team on paper does not compare to the Broncos on paper. But the way that they're put together intangibly, yeah, I think it compares to any team in the NFL.
Yeah, I think they're, one of the things he did was like just real simple. It's like, hey, we were number one without Joey Bosa most of the year. Why do we need to pay him to be around here? Like, we'll be fine.
Or Keenan Allen, or Mike Williams, or Austin Eckler. Yeah,
I mean, I think he understands. Like, he doesn't just sign names.
Yeah,
and if you hire Jim Harbaugh, you're not going to be the owner going like, oh, we should keep this guy, or I really like this guy. Like, no, you sell your soul to Jim Harbaugh, and it's a good thing because he's all about winning. He's just about the football. He's not about collecting names or talent. He's about building a football team. I think he's a tremendous football coach. I think he's got a great chance to win a Super Bowl. He's got a quarterback in total control. He's got a great chance to win a Super Bowl with the Chargers at some point. All right, who just missed the cut? Sam, anyone else you want to add? How many others did you have?
Not a ton. I mean, the Texans, Lions, and Bengals were all under consideration, but
did you have a ranking for them or no? Just throw those names.
Yeah, those are the other three I was considering for number 5. But I think what propelled the Chargers is the fact that they play them twice. And there's something else that I think really stands out about. Look, Patrick Mahomes has either won a Super Bowl every year, or he's lost in a pretty similar manner, which is the Patriots, his first Super Bowl loss, shut him out for a half. Now, he goes bonkers in the second half, but the game's lost because he gets shut out in the first half. The Bengals completely shut the Chiefs down in the second half of that AFC Championship game. Last year, the Eagles shut them out in the first half of the Super Bowl. The Chiefs have given up points in one game. So they gave up 35 to the Eagles and won a Super Bowl anyway. They gave up 36 to the Bills in regulation and scored 42 and won in overtime. Like, they can outscore teams. And so I think this list should be teams that we feel like could potentially give Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense a trouble for a half, even, because that's been the formula to beat them in the playoffs.
So you said Texans, Lions, and who?
That's why I consider the Texans, is what I'm saying, because I think the Texans defense potentially has the names and the good coordinator, because I'm considering Ryan's the coordinator. I think, and let's face it, they're probably going to win the division and play at home in the playoffs. Like, so they're more likely to reach the playoffs. So that's even though I don't think they're one of the best teams, like, I think that they have to be under consideration for that reason.
Okay. Texans, Lions, and who was the third one?
The Bengals, I think, were probably 8th. It was more Texans and Lions, and hey, we've got to at least consider the Bengals.
Okay. Who else was under consideration for you, Jeff?
Chargers, Rams, Commanders, Bengals. Chargers for all the reasons you guys mentioned. I don't have to get into all that, but the Rams, I'm surprised no one talked about the Rams here. It must be on your top 10, Soren, just doing the math here. But the Rams, with the coach who's won a championship, the quarterback who's won a championship, the weapons and the defensive front, I like that mix. I just think they're the third best team in the NFC. And the Commanders, Soren had mentioned them. I think Jaden Daniels is a wild card. I think that's a lot to ask of a team with a young quarterback to make that kind of leap over, I think, more accomplished teams. I think that the Commanders don't have as much talent as the Lions or the Eagles do. And then the Bengals, just because if the Bengals are able to just be what they were a couple of years ago, they're always going to be dangerous because they don't fear the Chiefs. I think they feel like they can beat the Chiefs wherever they play them if Joe Burrow is healthy and on the field.
And so the Bengals. So you had a total of 9?
Yep.
Okay. My others receiving votes: Bengals 6, Eagles 7, Rams 8, and then I give it a chance of working in Pittsburgh. That it could work with Aaron Rodgers. I give it a chance.
I don't think Pittsburgh would be in my top 20.
I give it a chance.
I knew there had to be something in there that just didn't make any kind of sense.
I'm a believer in Mike Tomlin, and if anybody's going to make it work, first of all, Aaron Rodgers statistically did not play that bad last year.
Yes, he did.
Not from a just like, yes, I know if you dive deeper, but just like overall, he didn't come out and he wasn't a disaster. Are you gonna say he was a disaster? Or like, what was he, 28 and 10?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was a disaster.
Yeah, and he's not joining like the 99 Rams either.
I think he's a disaster in the locker room, right? I think Mike Tomlin has got a chance to manage that. I think he does a good job of managing those things. So I give it a chance to work in Pittsburgh, and then I have the Green Bay Packers at 10.
Wow.
I believe in Jordan Love. I think there's more there. I think the Packers have kind of underachieved, and I think they could be a team. So I wanted representation of some of the teams that I think could come from off the grid. I wanted to get them on the list, so I'm at least on the record. So if we get a Packers Steelers Super Bowl, y'all will be shutting your mouths.
Yeah, we will be.
I will be. Yeah.
yeah. You're taking Pittsburgh having a better chance of beating the Chiefs than of the Chiefs beating the Lions in the Super Bowl. That's what you're saying.
Well, because I think they've got a better chance to play the Chiefs and beat them because they'd have to go through them in the AFC playoffs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The Lions got to go all the way to the Super Bowl. Sam's point, I did not wait as much about playing a team in the regular season. Sam makes a good point about that. So, I didn't weigh that as much. It was more about okay, who can do damage? And so I was heavily AFC. But, I do think the Eagles are good. I think the Rams are good. I think the Commanders are good. The Packers are good. I guess I've got 4 out of my 10, but I've only got 3 of those 4 are down in the bottom 5. So, yeah. I think it's a pretty good list. Look, up top, we all 3 have the Bills and Ravens 1-2. Sam and I have the Broncos at 3. Jeff, you have them at 5. You and Sam have Jeff, you have the Eagles at 3. Sam has them at 4. And then Sam and I both have the Chargers at 5. I'm the only one with the Commanders. You're the only ones with the Lions in the top 5. So we're not in our top 5. We're not that far apart.
No, I think they're all legit teams. I'm still amazed that you could go 10 deep and not have the Lions in there.
Wow.
We had a lot of agreement until you mentioned the Steelers.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, you're a noted Steeler hater. I mean, you spent all of last year.
I am a noted Steeler hater.
By the way, did you cash that bet on?
There was something.
It did come home.
It did. Yeah.
I know you bet against them when they were flying high, and I can't remember they had to lose X number of games. I didn't know if they got that. I know it was by a half, right?
Yeah.
But it was a bold. What were the odds? 2 or 3 to 1?
Not quite, but yeah, they were pretty good odds on it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So you delivered. Well done. Listen, if you're looking for someone to deliver when it comes to your parking lot, Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot, keeping your parking lot safe, helping you and your business avoid unnecessary delays. It's what they do. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Suede Cannabis, if you haven't heard. Best Me Wellness, it's now Suede Cannabis. Find the location nearest you and shop online at SuedeCannabis.com and our friends at Northland Injury Law. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers. Our friends at Northland Injury Law have been serving Kansas City for more than 40 years. Call 816-400-HURT. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.